Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to Comfort Homesake's podcast, The Tea on Elderhood, where we explore what it means to be an elder. We believe in the power of people to reinvent and rebuild community, and we invite you on our journey. Because we value the youth, their voice is also at the table and, together with the wider community, we'll get to a better understanding of the need for and value of elderhood. Sit back and join us, along with our guests, as we engage in rich, thought-provoking, and sometimes funny dialogue. And remember, if you have a question you want us to comment on, please email us at info@comforthomesake.com. Welcome to the tea.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Tea on Elderhood. My name is Novella, and today I have with me Didosio, Iya Tahira, and Safia. We've all come together to explore the connections elders have between our community, our friends and family, and most importantly, ourselves. We see a need to bridge the gap between elders and the youth, so as a society we could grow with the ability to share, teach, and motivate one another. For the first chapter, we'll focus on the physiological. I'd like to start with our centering thought: what's the meaning of elderhood? We want to try to explore what classifies someone as an elder. What purpose do they serve, or what purpose should they serve? What does the youth view the elders as? And we need to explore where the disconnect might be. And so I'd like to start with asking Iya Tahira, what does elderhood mean to you?
Elderhood means to me that to have lived a life in a way that I can bring forth a guide, navigation, a guidepost for the next generation going forth. And that means not passing on my pain, my suffering, but be able to recalibrate that in a way that the generation can benefit. It can be through stories, whatever way. When they come to us, a young person come to us, being able to tell them a story that uplifts them, not a story that keeps their victimization or the trauma in a family going. And I think we do that a lot. That's where I feel that we are today. We don't know, we have not arrived at a place that we can transcend those stories to be lessons for us. We still stay in the pain of that. So for me as an elder, to live that conscious awareness that I can help a young person when they come to me, not join them in their pain, but to help them to walk through that pain or to walk beyond that place that they are stuck in life.
Wow, this is Didosio speaking. I'll be helping to moderate. I want to say that's pretty relevant what you said, and pretty profound. The thing that stuck out to me was the idea of not passing on pain and struggle. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Having come from the culture and have the experiences that I have, and some of the pain that I experienced in my family. One, a lot of times we walk away, and I think our culture sanctions us. We blame our parents for a lot of the pains that we suffer. We blame the situation we're in for a lot of the difficulties or not being able to make good choices for ourselves. And I think sometimes we build those within the culture. Even those of us who are working to, say in social work, but I feel like we recycle those pains as making them normal, or making them helping to stay stuck in that situation of blame. And we work on our parents for the rest of our lives. But without understanding where our parents were when we were born, where was our parents? What was their situation? Once we understand that situation, they could not pass on anything other than their own pain. It was their pain, it's not ours, and they was doing the best that they could. With the knowledge that they had, when I look at my parents, it's almost unimaginable. How could they make certain decisions and survive when I think back to it? Because I think I was in that place where I wanted to blame my parents. when we went away in the civil rights movement, we wanted to point to what had gone wrong, our parents not being knowledgeable, not being having the knowledge that we had, and we did a lot of judgment. But when we walk back into that space and look at it from a perspective of maturity, adulthood, and look at it, say, oh, go where your parents are. What was the situation that they lived? What was the situation at the time that they was living, that I was born into? And once I can examine that, then I can address a lot of my trauma and be able to help the next generation to move forward and not continue that pattern. I think that's a lot of what I see. We continue the cycle, the patterns of that trauma.
It's a repackaging of hurt that's almost hereditary because it's happened so often and so naturally. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Well, one of the things I think it was a study, I forget who the writer was, in social work. He was asked, he was a black social worker. I wish I could recall his name. But he was asked if what black people's experience was it genetic. And here's what he said. He said, because of the continuation of repatterning that and recycling that, sometimes it looks like genetics because it's a conditioning of that pattern. And we pass it on until we address it and change the way that it exists or the way that we see it, it continues. If we say the reason that things are happening to us is because it's the police or some ways outside of us. But when do we step back and say, where is it inside of us? What is my thinking around that?
Safi, I see you shaking your head. Seems like you may have something you want to add, or at least a perspective you'd like to share.
I do. Um, it's making me think about people that elderhood is not an age, and that there are people in various age ranges that can make you feel that sense of, it's not my fault, because there are elders that will be stuck in that same pattern of blame, in that same pattern of, pain and struggle, right? That even becoming an elder doesn't necessarily, I guess, make you more empathetic. And I guess it's the empathy that I think maybe old souls carry in multiple ages that sometimes we look to. And ear to hear, she was talking about the struggle that gets passed down for generations, and that it's not genetic, right? But it's the fact that our elders they don't mature, that they kind of just get old. So it's the same stuff that gets cycled over and over again because the actual elder has never emerged, right? And it's to me, it's the expectation that's not there. That our grandparents and even to hear her grandparents, they expected so much more from us. And today our expectations are allowed to be so low. It's just, oh, you just good if you just staying alive, and oh, you just okay if you just got a job, and oh, you doing so good because you did. The expectation is so low. It's so low that we're unable as a community to know how to rise and how to heal ourselves, because the expectation is that we're sick, right? So I think it's something about how our elders have to grow as well, right? And then that there's people in our community that have old souls that can be empathetic to us, and that do help us.
Mm. You said a couple of things that struck me. You said maturity versus aging, and holding to higher standard. And it caused me to wonder something. And the question in my mind is, what is the difference between being an elder in this truest, most powerful sense and being considered an elder? Is there a difference?
You really took the words out my mouth. I was just thinking there's a textbook version of elderhood and being an elder, and then there's the real meaning of being an elder. I feel like the textbook version, we're going off of the Western world's view of what an elder is. You're someone that's aging, going to retirement, collecting that Social Security check, and playing with the grandkids. But in reality, the elder that we're trying to really talk about is the one that's highly respected, someone that we can go to, talk to about anything. They have full empathy. They really are the glue to the family and to the community. But we're so focused, like when we hear the word elder and having a conversation, it doesn't sound exciting because we're thinking, oh, it's about growing old and we're afraid to age. But there shouldn't be a fear to mature and be wise and help others. That's the elder that we're trying to talk about here.
Ia Tahira, you are our elder guide. Could you help us uh, bring all the sides together and elaborate some for us?
Well, I want to go like, I think what happens, I heard Sophia talk about the old soul. At one time when I was growing up, the old ones, the older people in the community used to say, oh, grandpa has arrived. He's like grandpa. He carrying the grandpa image. Well, in recognizing that grandpa arrived, you began to invite his wisdom or her wisdom forward. And also, there's an initiation that takes place. And I think that that's where we are. We don't know how to call forth that gift and sanction that gift into our community to welcome it in. We got to a place when those children came in, oh, you too big. Sometimes that child would get cowered down as opposed to inviting that child to that person to stand up in the community. And then I think it was what I saw that a lot of time it was a threat because it was threat. If the elder or older person or parents don't know how to answer the child, the tendency is to suppress. Something wrong. Why you always got to ask that question? Why do you got to be different? Why you can't be like? And that was kind of the auspice that I grew up on. It's like you always invited to be like. Why can't you be like? Why, as opposed to enhancing that gift of bringing that forth? And it just happens that I had grandmothers that I could go to when I got cowered down. I could go to them and ask a question. They may not have been able to give me a lot of information. And Sarah Mutchin was that key person, I think, that saved me. Because one of the things that Sarah said to me when I was going through a real trying place, and she just said, you know, baby, a lot of people, everybody can see things, but not everybody can see and know things. And it was like that little piece stuck it somewhere in my heart. Somehow it resonated in me to carry me to, like cross was, like to think, okay, well, they're not understanding me. They don't see me. But it gave me something, a little step to stand on, a little thread to hold on to.
So it sounds like part of the journey to becoming an elder in its truest sense. And that being things like the person is respectful, is respected, uh, helps the community, helps hold the community together, those kinds of things. In order for that to be realized, there's a certain journey that we have to take to get there. Some people embrace it, others do not. So the question I have is, what gets in the way of people embracing it? And I'll leave that open to whomever would like to take it first.
I just think Ia Tahir just touched on it, but those tendencies being suppressed really keeps people from embracing it. I just think of moments in my childhood in middle school and elementary. There were times I was around adults and I noticed things that shouldn't have been happening, but also I'm too young to really notice. So then the thing was, I remember someone saying that I had an attitude and that with my attitude I'm going to get nowhere in my life. But I never realized why I had an edginess towards that man. But years later I find out he was fired from the high schools for, being taking pictures of females. So yeah, it was, in hindsight, I saw like what I was feeling because I had such an edginess towards him, but I always was taught respect your elders no matter what, right? You're in school, you need to be respectful, pipe down. But I had no one to go to understand what I was really feeling at that moment. I could not understand why I just had something about, there was something in my mind that said this is not a good person, even though he was there to teach. But we're forced to respect them.
I do thinking about when Novella said, I feel like, you've been there multiple times probably in your life where you're like, I don't know, I got a feeling about this person. But, my middle daughter, she's named Hattie, who's the oldest relative who we have a picture of. I believe maybe she was a slave. And my daughter's name is Hattie, and she has like an old soul. And there was a time when she was 1 year old, she was sitting around the table. We were having Thanksgiving, and my dad was talking about Thanksgiving. And he looks over and he goes, "Ooh, she gave me chills. I don't know why she's looking at me like that. She's looking at me like an old person, like a grown up." And it just was her nature, right? And I still say, like, if I didn't parent any of them, she'll be fine. Like, it's just, you have to be able to recognize like people's soul. And I mean, I go back to, like, I think being an elder, that should be something that you are, or I guess maybe good at, or that you have a sense for, or, that you can feel someone's intention or their aura or their energy. You should be able to be tapped into that, I think, if you're going to call yourself an elder. I mean, there's people who are old but super superficial, right? Or they're old but they give no advice, or or they're old but they don't have strong family ties, right? So it's not about the age. Like Novella said, we do have this "oh, respect your elders" kind of thing in society, but the respecting someone out of age, I think in this culture is naive, and it would actually lead us to destruction as a community, just out of age alone, because of the non-healing that has went on that you brought up. So we can't really trust those that are just old, because unfortunately, age is a survival now. It's not a nourishment. It's not a thriving. It's man, I survived the gutter. So my attitude is real different, right? I survived everything. I might be the only black man standing, or I'm the only, So it's a different attitude of survival from elders these days. It's not that, I guess, it's not that being able to come and present my soul to you that I feel like you wanted to accept the guidance from.
Wow. Now, something I've heard the term a number of times during the course of our conversation, this notion of someone having an old soul. Now, we may understand what that means, but there may be folk out there who don't. So, would someone like to share what it means to be an old soul or to have an old soul?
I would say first, to have an old soul, you have to feel like you've been here before. It's a lack of nuance, or that, there's everything's going to be okay. If I were to put it in maybe the simplest type of language, it's the overall feeling that everything's going to be okay, that you approach every situation with that calm first, right? And the old soul, I think, comes from the fact that if everything's going to be okay, it's because I've seen it before, because I've walked here before. There's a maturity that comes with it. It's not so, "Oh, what's that? What's this? What's that? What's that? Don't do that. Don't do that." It's not that. It's a vibe. It's a feeling. It's an energy. It's a wave that I think, we recognize in maybe our ancient people, and we label those people who carry that as old soul.
Novella, you want to add something?
Um, I really feel like when I hear someone is an old soul, and I've actually been talking to my coworkers' children, like when they come on camera during our calls, but one of them, I feel like their child is an old soul, and it's because she seems so connected with the world, even though she's so young. She did a very simple project for Black History Month, and they had to make a sign to say what they're protesting against or something, or what they want to cheer for, and she just wrote love, and I was like, huh, for a little kid, that's interesting she would choose that. And I told her, I always sign every card love always wins. And she said, because it's true. And this is a child. So seeing how connected she is, at first I thought maybe she's just, around her mom, following her mother's mannerisms. But I think there's a lot more to it, because it's one thing to be a parrot and repeat what you hear. But when you actually understand it, that just shows how connected you might be.
Well, I think that again we have to go back now. We at a point where we can redefine why we are here. We can ask the different, why am I here? Why did I come? Who am I? And what happened to us in the outset, we've been sort of colored and conditioned through, what do I want to say? Conditioned through conventional religions, and that it took us outside of our indigenous way of knowingness. There's an indigenous way of knowing, that continuation of a thread of why am I here? And we became this attached to a permanent, being permanent beings on a planet, as opposed to understand that our purpose for being here was to evolve and elevate ourselves in consciousness. What elevates itself in consciousness is the soul. It is my soul that comes to expand itself. If no one is there to teach us that it is our soul that comes to expand the self, how can we know what that means?
Okay.
Here's what we think: we're gonna die and go to heaven. We don't know how to embody life, that we are here purposely to live and express our gift, bring forth our gifts, to evolve ourselves as a human species. One of the things I got is from my ancestral guidance is that the ancestor guidance was that they had a time that they had to stand still in the inquisition of enslavement in order not to become extinct beings. That's a heavy piece of work. I mean, that takes a lot of threading. So you look at that, what was it? Because we had to stand still because we were not yet enlightened enough to go forward any further. Had we gone forward any further, we could become extinct. That means we don't have enough consciousness, enough awareness to go through. Here we are, trapped in this whole context of enslaved people, cut off from our knowledge, our language, cut off from everything that gives meaning to our life. So it's almost like you're being thrown into this situation. Now you have to learn this new way of being. So how do we learn this new way of being? So they had to go through, and they went through many trials and errors, but there was those who knew something that was able to hold that placenta in place and continue to feed us and bringing us back to our ancient knowledge and wisdom of knowing. But we had to take time to become more knowledgeable of that. How could we know if you cut off somebody from their language? How can you know, take yourself forward without standing still to learn? You had to learn it. You had to experience it. So now you had an experience. Now you know the players. Now, how can we recalibrate a way and trend for ourselves to go forward? Because we have enough wisdom. Hopefully we have information. How can we turn that information into knowledge and wisdom? You asked the question of elders. Elders are those who are willing to walk through the courses of darkness to get to the other side of life, to see. They walk through their own trauma. They walk through their own pain. When you walk through your own pain and your own traumas, you can see. You can't see unless you're willing to embrace that which blinds you, that dark, that shadow part of yourself. Can you measure? Can you face your shadow and walk through? Or are you going to just stand here? It's like being willing to walk and face your own shadow.
One of the things I'm trying to get is I'm trying to understand how we regard an individual, in what way we regard an individual, so that we can consider him or her an old soul. And one of the things you said, Tahira, going into this was that the soul is self-evolving, which I think is really powerful. And perhaps that could be that characteristic in all humans, all peoples who are considered old souls? Because it seems like it takes the individual has taken a personal interest, stake, and actions in his or her behalf. Is that kind of does that encapsulate it at all? Is that or am I left field, right field?
Well, I was just, added to that was the line that you just said, Ia, is that is that elders are the seers, and that they have walked through their own pain. Like, that is it. Because we can, those of us who are not elders, we can see those that have walked through their own pain. There's so much clout and respect, and I don't know if cosmic, but we know those that can see through their own pain, because most people are not. Most people are running around fake. So those that stand out, I mean, yes, elder. I think, if that's the label of elder, if we agree that that's one of the definitions of elder, but I think that is what sets that person's energy apart, is that they have went through and went through their own pain and have able to navigate it and seen themselves through it. Like, that's the energy that sets them apart as an elder, as a safe space.
And I get that. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if a person is 2 years old and considered to have an old soul, where is the challenge that they went through?
In their soul, in their past soul.
I want to give you a story now that I'm going to use Malidoma because that's the closest thing in terms of a story. In that culture, when first of all, they have birth hearings, and the purpose of a birth hearing is to determine who's coming. So if you determine who's coming, sometimes the person who comes may be a return mother. The return mother. It may be, I could have been my mother's mother in another lifetime, and I came in as the return mother to help my mother. Okay, this is an example. So what it is, this soul out there, this soul chooses to come in at a critical time and another time and space, but it chooses this woman to be the mother. But it actually comes in to help that person in its mothering because it already has lived that situation. It knows how to get that person through. It may not even have words, but it knows. Now, let's take that piece. If we was intact in an indigenous way of seeing and knowing, we would have recognized that person when she came in, and we would align that energy in a way that would have been recognized to support and sustain the village or the community. So if we have, you asked the question, if we have that kind of awareness, then we can begin to create the kind of society or culture we want to our own children. Safia would know this for her children. She know now that to create an initiatory space for these children and recognize their gift and cultivate that, not condition them to join a culture that says it's all about making money, your degree, who are you, that kind of competitiveness. What do you bring back home to your community to help uplift your community? Most time we educate our youth to go away to make money, to get a degree, and but not to bring it give back home.
I wanted to try and figure out. So I now have a better. I personally now have a better sense, a better understanding of what the term "old soul" means, or how it means to other people. I wasn't aware of this dynamic of connection to the ancestors as it was explained. So I think that's really is interesting, quite interesting. My question is, how does the old soul factor into elderhood as we think of it in its best way? What's the connection? What's the role? How do they fit together?
Um, I really do think An old soul, we already described as someone that was probably here before, was probably someone who was an elder and moving on to the next life. So that old soul comes into this world with a package, with a gift to share and to be an elder as they go through life. The only issue is, I think we don't allow those children with old souls to grow into that full potential, because I know we touched on it a bit, but we suppress those tendencies where we say, "Oh, you're too grown. What do you know about that? This is grown folks' business." We don't allow kids to express themselves fully. We try to keep them into a bucket or like a section to say, you should be a doctor, you're going to go to college, you're going to get your master's, you're going to get this. But we're suppressing their gifts by telling them they need to fit in one of these two pockets.
I went to Tanzania for the first time in 2019, and that was an amazing experience. One of the takeaways for this conversation is, we actually went as cultural visitors instead of going as tourists. So we were really big to kind of just blend in. So, I covered and, it was very modest. So we got a chance to really talk to people. And there's this one guy, and he was saying how he was explaining all of the over 1,000 languages spoken in Tanzania alone. And how he was explaining how you have your mother tongue, which is your tribal tongue. You have Swahili, which is your African language for all your brothers. And then you either have English or Arabic, depending on your colonizer, right? So he was saying that, just out of Tanzania, that these slaves with these slaves and these slaves, and they all went to the Americas. And so he was like, I don't understand how any of you guys get along. He was like, because I got a tribe over here, and this tribe, they think about if you disrespect them, then they kill you. I got another tribe, this tribe, if you disrespect them, they wail and cry for tears. He was like, that everyone's so different. And so he was trying to wrap his head around being in America with thousands of different African tribal lineage, and how do we function, right, as Black people in this country. He was teaching us basically how diverse Africa is, how many people, how many cultures, how many tribes. And then he wanted us to explain to him how all of these tribes, how do we work together here in America? Now, did we have a good answer for him? No, we didn't, right? But what it did do is it helped us understand how different we are, how we have evolved, right? From a place of once being in Africa and having our African family tongue and, having that tribal structure, how we have evolved, but that the only connection that we have with the motherland is elderhood. Like, that's the only connection we have with that place, is the fact that that's the place where, our old souls come from. That's the place where our elders, take us back to. Like, that's our only connection with being in Africa, right? That's our only connection. Because Africans, they taught me they don't see themselves as Black. It's a different dynamic, right? That this racism that that's put into categories. They see themselves as, I am African, I'm Tanzanian, I'm who they are. It's not this dividing. So I think elderhood is the only connection we have to our motherland. And so the further we get away from our elders, the further we are from Africa, from our beginning.
And the further we're away from ourselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
She touched on it right there, where if we're trying to go back to our lineage, for us, the African Americans, we're so far away from it. There's a reason why we don't have that sense of pride that I find some of my other friends from African countries have, because we're just so focused on slavery. We were once slaves. That's all they taught us in school. So we just take it as that, and we don't even pursue the history beyond that. we're not told to pursue the history beyond that. That's another problem. In school, the history books, they start our history and really stop it. For like, they start it with slavery and then end it with civil rights movement, and then that's it. That's the blackness. But in reality, we're so far away from it. Our roots really do come from Africa, so why aren't we talking about that? Maybe the education plan, they don't have time for that, but the elders that we have right now are also just as far detached. So we can't turn to them to look for that. We almost have to do it ourselves. Because we say that there's this, in Safia, we've talked before about this, there's a barrier. And right now, like, you can say there's a barrier between youth and elders, but there's also a barrier between us becoming an elder. We can't break it down unless we actually do the work and research. How far back do we really go? What is our mother tongue? I couldn't even tell you what my mother tongue was. I need to pay either $99.99 on Ancestry, or I need to pay a couple $100 on African Ancestry just to find that out.
And then no mother to speak it, right?
Yeah.
Tahira, were you going to say something?
I'm just thinking that I think it's greater than just having the mother tongue. I met a young man from, I want to say Zimbabwe. I was early on. I think I was in University, Indiana, Purdue University. And what he said to me, he said, so he was saying, like, we don't have the Africa, we're not connected in Africa in the way of knowing Africa. He told me, he said, but you are connected. You know more about Africans' cosmology or spirituality than we do, because we too been colonized and we too been broken away. We've been taken out of that. And you will be the one who will lead us back to that wholeness. Why? He says, because one, you had the opportunity to be here to experience what took us away from Africa, what took us away from the true meaning of our indigenous way of life. So one of the things I do, I ask people, suppose we take slavery and not give it a new definition and look at slavery as a part of that initiatory journey. And why did we might say, well, why would we need to have that initiatory journey? Because we needed to understand a world that was evolving in front of us, and we could not know that world until we walk out of that world. Many of us was not wanting to walk out of that world. I want you guys to stay with this thought that I'm having. Many of us didn't want to walk out of that world. Contrast that with today. We offering another way of seeing it, inviting us to walk forward, to really recalibrate and give a new definition to where we are on the planet. In terms of what have we learned from our own inquisition of enslaved and oppressed people? What have we learned about ourselves as a human species? What are those great lessons? And how would we raise that vibration? I'm using these terms, vibration, that consciousness, in a way that we see ourselves greater. If we are the mothers and fathers of creation, how then would we raise that vibration to offer something different on this planet? How would we begin to have a different conversation? And to me, that's the conversation I feel that we fear having, is stepping out of that part of enslaved culture and ask ourselves, as the ancestors said, in order to go forward, you must be willing to go back where you've been, where you come from. They weren't talking about a place. They said, go back to your beginning and then look at where you've been on this planet. This is your soul evolution. We're not looking at physicality. We're looking at what have we learned along the way. Like the young girl who said love. The old soul who not, the only thing that matters, that means I know that love works. So how will we help that young person to cultivate that?
That is an absolutely beautiful question. Yeah, I have to take a moment and consider what you just said because it's just so profound. It seems to me like well, a lot of things that it was said was profound. For instance, the notion that even in Africa there's a breaking of what it means to regard elderhood, and even in America there's the same thing. So that means that while we're the same, we're different, and yet we're still the same. But the thing that really got me was because I was thinking about, well, what do we need to do in order to start bridging this gap? How do we get from where we are to where we feel we need to be? And yet, Harry, you touched on some things that just really struck me. For instance, the idea of an evolutionary, a soul evolution, excuse me, or the initiatory journey, which are things that I feel are very profound and very relevant, but they are missing. And I'm just wondering if I were to start creating a list of traits or characteristics that we need to have in order to start bridging that gap, what are some of the thoughts that come to mind?
I unconditional love. I still stand on that in terms of one of the most important characteristics for an elder. But I wanted to touch on the soul evolution, right? And how like that happens. I don't know. Maybe what's the bad person? A pessimist or optimist? The reverse of that? Because pessimist, because I truly feel like there is a war on our soul's evolution. That there are purposeful blocks and purposeful manipulations, maybe systems, references to separate our experiences here. And what I because I'm thinking about the old soul in the children and how do they become elders. And to be honest, a lot of them don't make it. Just like they don't make it. You know, there's a bad saying here where we say basically a black guy dies every day, and we don't make it. Like, and I don't know, old souls who I've known are not alive anymore. I don't know whether it's a spiritual thing. Hey, you're here and this world sucks, so you got to go back away. I don't I don't know, but what I do know is that the likelihood of the old souls that are born and the old souls that become elders is very minimal. And that's just my experience. So the soul's evolution, I don't know. I hate to feel like when the soul evolves, then it doesn't need the body anymore. I'm not as fortunate to walk around and know many people will say like it you to hear know many people who are in touch in that truly spiritual whole kind of way. Most people are not, and when they evolve spiritually, they are not with us anymore. And I don't know if that's a real thing. I don't know if that's just my experience, but my experience is that old souls rarely make it to elderhood.
Can I just ask, because you really struck me, so do you think it's about the job is done of the soul and then it moves on? Or do you think it's just society has created all these different barriers that sooner or later, because then society's net against us is so large that sooner or later you get caught in that net and you don't make it through?
I think it's both. I think both things are happening, and that's why I think that old souls don't make it to elderhood, because I think that both things are happening. Once my soul has evolved, I should be an elder, right? And so I should be sharing those experiences. I should be guiding the next generation. I should be displaying unconditional love. But there is no safe place on this planet for that to truly happen on a massive scale. So therefore, that's why I feel like it's a cosmic war. It's a spiritual war about those that are trying to evolve and forces that are blocking our evolution.
Novella, what you got?
Um, I agree, but then there's this part of me that wants to view this barrier from keeping us going to reaching elderhood as artificial. There's an attack on our souls every day, but we could try to change our way of thinking and see it as test, or there's another word I'm looking for, not just a test, but there's lessons to be learned in a lot of these trials and tribulations that we go through. Yes, we're trying to get past the victimization of things, saying like, oh, the systemic racism, the slavery, but yes, these things happen, but they've made us into the strong people we can be tomorrow. We may not be that strong person today, but I'll go back on love, because it was crazy to me that little girl even thought of bringing that up. But I really am starting to notice day in and day out that love really does always win. Having that unconditional love will motivate you to get past this attack on your soul. But if you have no one around you to give you that nurturing, you're gonna just want to be out of here. You want to say like, I'm done, bye, sorry, it's too rough out here. And maybe there's some souls that are just here to facilitate things, and maybe they are not here to move past and go beyond and reach full elderhood and pass in that sense. Everyone serves a purpose. Who knows what all of our purposes are? But if you try to hone back down to the fact that love will help push you forward, through this life, I know we'll be in a way better place.
Yeah, Tahira, you have the floor.
You guys put so much there. It's like, because it's like become become that which you want to see manifest in the world. Those of us who become aware and enlightened beings have to be able to mimic that into the world by changing the constructs, changing the educational system, that it began to resonate and resound what we saying here. The whole you living in a 150-year-old educational system that was created to sustain a culture, to sustain a system. It wasn't created to liberate you. It was created to control and condition you to support its existence. That for us as a people, we have to come to a point to accept that and make a choice about what is it that we need to be learning our programming now into our minds, into our children. How do we program? Taking ourselves out of a system and looking to that system to liberate us, whether it's voting in the right president, voting in the right Congress, because that system itself will not liberate, will not free us, will not give us anything different. It will give us a bigger band-aid. And I'm talking about a conscious mindset. Am I an unconditional loving person? What gets it? Do I judge? Will I go around and judge Novella when I leave here? Will I criticize her? It's looking at those small pieces that we carry. How do we develop and refine our own self? What do I know about my own indigenous way of life? And when I say, what do I know? Because we're not an indigenous people. We was cut off from that. What do I know about living in relationship with nature and living in relationship with the earth? What do I know? How do we get back to mother, to true mother, and align ourselves with all the elements that will self-sustain us? That's our basis. That's our initiatory journey. And when we define a program that we bring people in and teach us how to realign ourselves with these elements, then we can go back, because we can utilize those as our tools, as our ancient ancestors did. You can go back as far as Kemet, any parts of Egypt, and look at these places. Go into all of the indigenous Toltec people. Go into these cultures and look at what we've forgotten as a beings on this planet. And what our initial agreement was, because we made an initial agreement And we've been taken out of that initial agreement. So we have to come back and take baby steps.
Wow. Um, it seems like that I got goosebumps. So one of the themes that I've heard throughout our conversation today has been the theme about self ownership. Another one has been about soul evolution. And the other one is that we have to get past victimization. So, my question would be, if we are to go on a journey to get to a place where we embrace elderhood in the way that's good for all, what would be the first step we would need to take to realign ourselves?
I was just gonna say that it's getting back to nature. I think nature is one of those. Yeah, I think that that's like major key. And from visiting Africa, they were saying, oh, no, you're unnatural. Like they were calling us unnatural, and we're like, what, why? And it was because, yeah, really though, because I take Zyrtec for allergy pills, because we take Advil for headaches, right? Right. And so for them, we were on this tour and he was like, oh, I have a friend and she's on antidepressants. She's one of my best friends. We're on a spice tour. And the man said, oh, when you get depressed and you don't feel good, we just take this herb, put this together, chew it, and you feel better. We were like, what? And wait, he kept going. He was like, oh, we take this herb, and we stew it, and that's how we treat the COVID. And this is in COVID time, right? This is prime COVID time. And he's telling us how they use the herbs. And you that no one has told you that you could cure or help yourself with COVID using herbs, right? And I'm in Africa and they're saying it like it's common knowledge. Like, are you stupid? Like he was like, why would you do that? Are you stupid? Just take the herbs. So it's nature is so we're so removed from it, but it's on purpose, right? So the main program to realign would to take some Black people folks outside, try to recharge with the earth.
Yeah, I really think, yeah, nature is a big one. I went to the beach yesterday to just put my feet in the sand. I went by myself and my boyfriend was just like, why are you coming home soon? I was gonna stay for like 10, 20 minutes. I ended up staying there for over an hour. Um, just literally reconnecting. And it felt so nice. He said I came back and I looked like I was rejuvenated or something. And I love to start. I started planting 2020. So I almost feel like we are all on this journey to reconnect again by force. We have COVID and, all the other issues that we had, politics, it really forced us to sit our behinds down and literally reconnect with the earth. We witnessed the earth actually rejuvenating itself because there was less pollution out in the air. All the animals we thought were gone or came back out from hiding. They're like, the humans are chilling now. So I know that we're all prepared to get back to nature, and we're literally getting grounded. Okay, like we're burying our feet into the sand.
Okay. So getting back to nature, Ia Tahara, please share.
When we talk about getting back to nature, I like to invite people to test it out. Now that you heard that, find a tree that you can sit by and just sit by and observe that tree and just don't worry about what's in your head. Just sit with that tree. Because the trees are big, big in the African cosmology. Because they have sacred trees. They initiate a tree that will hold certain energy. Where if say somebody comes to, there's a father tree and a mother tree. So somebody comes a problem and it's related to women's issues or mother issues. There's an initiated priestess, a shamanic practitioner who will hold that piece of medicine, that placenta in the culture. And when that person comes to them, they go and petition that tree and they sit with that person and they ground them again and tell them how to be in relationship with what's going on, and it may be related to that tree. Um, so I think that when we start to practice certain things, we start to give meaning. It becomes more real to those of us who are going to be fostering this kind of leadership or this kind of guidance, that we ourselves need to experience those different parts ourselves. And do your research. If even for us, do your research. If I bring you something, go research it and say, let me go and see what Iyati can she give me reference? And so we might need to do that. But those of us who are on this platform are really the people who can take a different kind of message and to our community and inform the community. When we can be informed, we can make decisions. If we operating out here in blind spot, we can't make good decisions. So I think now is to look at how do we inform ourselves as well as informing others about what we're talking about. How do we refine those things that we already put here? Because a lot of questions are going to come. What is soul? Because we don't talk about soul. But if you look in your culture, your ancestors knew, even those who was in slavery, they may not have had language, but they had, my soul looks back and wonder how it got over. These are questions that something is going on here that's informing us. We may not have the language to interpret it, but we can hum it through. And then I come along and I hear it from another and say, oh, that has meaning. Then I go down that rabbit hole and I connect the dots if I'm listening and conscious and aware enough. But I gotta be conscious and aware.
We're coming towards the end of our conversation today. It's been superb, illuminating, and just enriching. And so we got one final question that I'd like to ask, and I want to challenge everyone to give us no more than 2 sentences as a response. Fair enough? Okay. So I would like to understand what prevents the individual from taking the next step.
I think what prevents someone from taking the next step is fear. We could say there's external factors that are keeping someone from taking that next step, but if you really take a deeper dive, it's literally just fear. That barrier, that wall, it's not there. You're self-actualizing that wall. You're putting in your own barriers because it's comfortable. If we break that cycle, face our fears, look at your shadow, embrace your shadow, then you could move forward and move on, move past these things, transmute it. But we let our own fears get in our way.
The first thing that came to my mind was resentment. But, I actually learned that resentment is not in the anger family, it's in the jealousy family. So I think, this is what I learned about emotions recently. So I still think it's resentment, but it's the envy of, not to be a victim, but it's an envy of our current situation.
Well, I'm going with what a young person said to me just yesterday. She said, well, the greatest thing for her was the unknown. If she could know the unknown, this is how she said it to me. And I said, then it wouldn't be the unknown, would it? So it's going back to novella. It's the fear. You got to allow yourself to drop off into that unknown world and be willing to explore that unfamiliar. Allow yourself to explore that and feel the discomfort of it. Otherwise, you cannot. It's just like walking. To me, sometimes it's like we make life difficult because it's like walking. You didn't know how to walk, and sometimes you was willing to fall down until you didn't even want your parents because they was coming in. You say, "Oh no, I want to do it myself." You're jumping and you want to do it yourself. So it's it's like taking that step into that unknown and just being willing to drop into it. Trust yourself. You fall, get up again. Oh, and guess what? It becomes easier. But there's some tools that you need. You need to be willing to sit still. You need to be willing to listen.
So we've gotten to the end. This has been excellent, and I'd like to take this some time just for last thoughts on today's subject. I'll go first. Um, I had I learned some things today that I did not know before, thanks to my willingness to hear and to listen, and my interest in this subject matter. I'm hopeful that other people will take the time to listen in and take these gems of wisdom that keep coming up in these conversations and apply them to their lives so that we can indeed begin to embrace and engage in a better regard for our elders.
I'm going to take from this seeking a program to realign. This is a healing space, but it's also a space to launch forward from the old ideas that we've had. And how are we going to move beyond victimhood, beyond our history here in America? What does our future look like?
I definitely want anyone listening to this to really go home, sit still, and really think about what a good community looks like to you, because that's what we're just trying to build here. Just a community surrounded by love, by understanding, the empathy, education. We want to just have a great safe space for everyone to just grow into an elder. And to get there, yes, we're going to have to remove our fears, put our pride aside, and walk by faith.
Tahira, your closing thoughts for the day?
Don't take my word for being an elder. Go down that rabbit hole and find out for yourself. If you have peoples in your life, elders in your life, olders in your life, whatever they are, go to them and ask them the question. Because sometimes if we don't ask them the question, they may not even have given thought to what it is to serve beyond being old and decrepit, or old and isolated. You may give them something to look forward to look at how they want to improve their own life. Because sometimes if we don't go and ask the old, they may not be able to feel that they're worth, because they too have been victimized.
Do you have a question you want to ask us? Heard something that resonated with you? Or maybe you just want to share a story about how your elder impressed you. We want to hear from you because we're interested in taking a deeper dive into the elderhood conversation, and your input helps. Please send your questions, comments, or observations to info@comforthomesake.com. And remember, someday you too will join the ranks of the elders. Plant your seeds accordingly.